The night sky over Ukraine flickered with an eerie glow. It was February 22nd, 2025, the eve of a grim anniversary, 3 years since Russia's full-scale invasion began. But this night, the darkness held a new terror. Hundreds of drones, dispatched by Russia, swarmed towards Ukrainian cities and towns. Their mission? To sow death and destruction, marking the anniversary with fire and fear. This was not just another attack in the seemingly endless war. It was the largest drone assault Russia had ever unleashed on Ukrainian soil. The sky buzzed with the menacing drone of these unmanned aerial vehicles, their shadows a terrifying premonition of the devastation to come. They were harbingers of death, their payloads promising fire and oblivion. Ukrainians, accustomed to the rhythms of war, found themselves plunged into a new nightmare. The familiar wail of air raid sirens sent people scrambling for shelter, their hearts pounding in their chests. Families huddled together in basements and makeshift bunkers, praying that the drones would not find them, that their homes would be spared. But for many, the night brought unimaginable loss. The sheer scale of the drone attack was staggering. Ukrainian officials reported a record-breaking 267 Russian drones launched in a coordinated assault. The skies over at least 13 regions, from Kharkiv to Odessa, were filled with these deadly machines. Each drone carried the potential for death and destruction, each one a tiny speck of terror magnified by their sheer number. Ukrainian air defenses, honed by years of constant threat, sprang into action. Anti-aircraft missiles streaked into the night, desperate to intercept the drones before they could reach their targets. The night sky lit up with the fiery trails of missiles and the explosions of downed drones. It was a desperate battle, a race against time to minimize the carnage. Out of the 267 drones launched, 138 were intercepted and destroyed, according to the Ukrainian Air Force. Another 119 were successfully jammed, their guidance systems disrupted, sending them crashing harmlessly to the ground. But even with these successes, the sheer volume of the attack meant that many drones slipped through the defenses. The drones that evaded Ukrainian defenses brought death and destruction to multiple regions. In Kherson, a city scarred by months of Russian occupation, 2 civilians were killed. A man and a mother of twins. Their deaths, a stark reminder of the human cost of the war, left a community in mourning. Kryvyi Rih, a city in central Ukraine, was also targeted. 1 person was killed and 3 others were wounded in the drone attacks. The strikes caused fires to erupt, engulfing buildings and sending plumes of black smoke billowing into the sky. Firefighters battled for hours to contain the blazes, their efforts hampered by the ongoing threat of further attacks. Even in the capital city of Kyiv, far from the front lines, the drone attacks left their mark. While no casualties were immediately reported, several homes and cars were damaged in the strikes. The attacks shattered the sense of normalcy that Kyiv residents had been trying to maintain, a stark reminder that nowhere in Ukraine is truly safe from the reach of Russia's war machine. The drones used in the February 22nd attack were not sophisticated killing machines. They were not the sleek, high-tech predators often associated with modern warfare. Instead, Russia unleashed a swarm of Iranian-made Shahed 136 drones, relatively cheap and readily available weapons that have become a hallmark of Russia's war in Ukraine. The Shahed 136, nicknamed the kamikaze drone, is a loitering munition. It is designed to circle over a target area, waiting for the opportune moment to strike. Once a target is identified, the drone locks on and dives at high speed, detonating its explosive payload on impact. Their low-flying trajectory and slow speed make them difficult to detect on radar. While less sophisticated than some drones, the Shahed 136 is a potent weapon of terror. Its low cost and ease of deployment make it a particularly attractive option for Russia, allowing them to launch large-scale attacks without expending expensive missiles. Their use in the February 22nd attack underscores the evolving nature of the conflict, as Russia increasingly turns to unconventional tactics in its attempt to break Ukraine's spirit. Section 5, Zelensky's plea, a call for unity in the face of terror. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, his face etched with fatigue and determination, addressed the nation hours after the drone attacks. He condemned the attacks as a blatant act of terrorism, a desperate attempt by Russia to break Ukraine's resolve on the eve of the invasion's anniversary. He called the attack the largest of its kind since Russia began using Iranian drones. Zelensky, his voice filled with grief and anger, spoke of the lives lost, the families torn apart. He praised the courage of the Ukrainian people, their resilience in the face of relentless aggression. But he also issued a plea for unity, both within Ukraine and among its international partners. He emphasized that only a united front could defeat Russia's aggression and bring a just and lasting peace to Ukraine. "We will not be broken," Zelensky vowed. "We will not surrender. We will fight for our freedom, for our land, for our people. And with the support of the free world, we will prevail." Section 6. Diplomatic maneuvering talks and tensions on the world stage. The drone attack on Ukraine came at a delicate time as diplomatic efforts to find a peaceful resolution to the conflict were underway. Preliminary peace talks between the United States and Russia had just taken place in Saudi Arabia, though without the participation of Ukraine or its European allies. The talks, shrouded in secrecy, had raised hopes for a breakthrough, but the drone attack cast a long shadow over the proceedings. A European Union summit was also underway in Paris, with the war in Ukraine topping the agenda. European leaders condemned the drone attacks, vowing to increase military and financial support for Ukraine. However, the exclusion of Ukraine from the US-Russia talks sparked tensions, with Zelensky publicly criticizing the decision. The diplomatic maneuvering highlighted the complexities of the conflict and the challenges of finding a peaceful resolution. The drone attacks underscored Russia's willingness to escalate the conflict even as diplomatic efforts were underway. It remained to be seen whether the talks in Saudi Arabia could produce any meaningful progress or whether the war would continue to rage, claiming more lives and devastating Ukraine. Section 7. Voices of Support. International reactions to the attack. The international community reacted with outrage and condemnation to Russia's massive drone attack on Ukraine. World leaders denounced the attacks as barbaric and unprovoked, expressing their solidarity with the Ukrainian people. The attacks served as a stark reminder of the global stakes of the conflict and the threat posed by Russia's aggression. US President Donald Trump, speaking from the White House, condemned the drone attacks as horrific and unacceptable. He reiterated the United States' unwavering support for Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity, pledging continued military and humanitarian aid. However, his decision to engage in bilateral talks with Russia without Ukrainian participation drew criticism from some quarters. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, in a show of solidarity, announced that he would travel to Kiev to meet with President Zelensky. He reiterated the United Kingdom's commitment to supporting Ukraine both militarily and diplomatically for as long as it takes. He called for increased international pressure on Russia to end its aggression and engage in meaningful peace negotiations. As Section 8, Life Under Siege, the Human Cost of War. The drone attacks of February 22, 2025 were a stark reminder of the human cost of the war in Ukraine. Behind the statistics, the casualty figures, and the geopolitical maneuvering lay the stories of ordinary people whose lives have been shattered by the conflict. Families torn apart, homes reduced to rubble, dreams extinguished by the relentless violence. In Kherson, the family of the young mother killed in the drone strike struggled to come to terms with their loss. Her twin children, now orphans, faced an uncertain future, scarred by the trauma of war. Their story, tragically, is not unique. Thousands of Ukrainian children have been orphaned, injured, or displaced since the start of the conflict. In Kryvyi Rih, residents emerged from their shelters to find their cities scarred by the drone attacks. The wounded were rushed to hospitals, already overflowing with casualties from the ongoing conflict. Doctors and nurses worked tirelessly, battling exhaustion and dwindling supplies to save lives. The physical and psychological toll of the war weighed heavily on them, as it did on all Ukrainians. Section 9. The Uncertain Future Implications and the Path Forward. The massive drone attack on Ukraine marked a grim milestone in the ongoing conflict. It underscored Russia's willingness to escalate the war even as diplomatic efforts were underway. The attack raised troubling questions about the trajectory of the conflict and the prospects for a peaceful resolution. The attack had significant implications for Ukraine's future. It highlighted the country's vulnerability to Russian aggression, despite the valiant efforts of its armed forces and the support of international partners. The use of Iranian-made drones also raised concerns about the proliferation of these weapons and their potential to destabilize the region. The path forward remained treacherous and uncertain. The drone attack cast a long shadow over the diplomatic efforts to end the war. It remained to be seen whether the talks in Saudi Arabia could produce any tangible results, or whether they would be derailed by Russia's continued aggression. One thing was clear. The war in Ukraine was far from over, and its human cost would continue to mount with each passing day.